Good evening, and welcome to this Justice Not Jails webinar on behavioral health services available through the Thurston County Courts and Jail. I'm Reverend Mary Geer, Minister for the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation. And with humility, the Olympia UU congregation helps support these forums because it is in line with our principles and values. We affirm the inherent dignity and worth of every person and the reality that we are interconnected. None of us is free until all of us are free, and all of us are worthy of freedom. Thank you so much for being here this evening and for bringing your open minds and hearts. And thank you to the speakers this evening for sharing your knowledge and experiences. And thank you to Steve Tilley and Justice Not Jails for offering this time to learn together as we seek to know our neighbors better. May this evening offer us the opportunity to listen across differences, to help us understand each other more deeply, and to invite us to take the next steps as we work for justice in our community. Thank you for being here. I'll pass the Zoom baton to you, Steve.
All right, thank you, Reverend Mary, and good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Tilley, member of Justice Not Jails. The forums were co-sponsored with NAMI, and Marilyn Roberts of NAMI will be here after a while and want to speak to NAMI's mission also. So Justice Not Jails is a network of people working to influence our local criminal justice system. So we're affiliated with OUC, and this meeting is being recorded so we can make it available on the church website. Thanks to Joe Celine and Mike Kyer for being our Zoom tech masters this evening. If you have suggestions for educational events or local justice system reforms you'd like to see, or to join our Google group, send me an email. I'll put my address in the chat. So we're really pleased to be co-sponsoring this forum with NAMI and grateful to Carrie Hennen for all her support in creating these. This is the second of 3 forums. The first forum in February was about services that are helping to keep people out of jail. The third forum on April 26th will talk about services for people after exiting jail. Recordings of all 3 forums will be available on the website. And we're going to put a link to the registration for the third forum in the chat. That's there now. So now I want to introduce Carrie Hennen. She's the program manager for the treatment sales tax program. It's a terrific asset for Thurston County, and I really appreciate everything that Carrie is doing. Carrie?
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Carrie Hennen. I work for Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, and as Steve indicated, I manage our treatment sales tax. Treatment sales tax is local funding for behavioral health, so mental health and substance use disorder treatment, and a lot of other services related to treatment. TST for short funds a lot of programming, not exclusively in the criminal legal system, but majority of our funding is kind of interwoven into the criminal justice system. And it's been great working with Steve Tilley and Marilyn Roberts on putting together these forums. So I will provide a little bit of background and then introduce some guest speakers who are doing great work to serve people in our justice system with behavioral health needs. I'm going to go ahead and hopefully share my screen. For anyone who joined us at the February forum, this will be a review, or for anyone who's on county meetings where we talk about this stuff, this will be a review. But just by way of background, why are we here? We're here because people with behavioral health needs are overrepresented in the justice system. This just provides a couple different data sources. No matter how you look at it, no matter if you're looking at local, state, or national data, whether you're looking at mental health, substance use, or co-occurring, you will see highly disproportionate rates of people with behavioral health needs involved in the justice system. So what do we do about that? So I wanted to just sort of introduce or reintroduce this sequential intercept model. this is just a framework for how we think about this issue and how we plan services around this challenge. So we did not make this up locally. This is a national model. This is endorsed by SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And so the basic premise is that people move through the criminal legal system along sort of a predictable pathway. And as individual communities, what we should be seeking to do is make sure that each of those stages, there's some sort of process to identify people with behavioral health needs and connect them to treatment, hopefully diverting them out of incarceration or kind of stopping their progression down that deeper into that criminal justice pathway, or maybe re-interrupting a cycle of returning to the justice system. So really, it's just a way of thinking about what exists in the community, what doesn't exist in the community at each of these steps along the way. This is just what the national model looks like. So we talk about different intercepts where we can, again, provide mechanisms to identify people, divert to treatment. So if you were on the forum in February, we were really focusing on sort of early in that process, how people are in the community or maybe having an initial contact with law enforcement. What are the services that are in place so to connect people with behavioral health needs to other services, to treatment, et cetera, so that they don't end up going further along down that pathway. Tonight, sort of assume that, okay, that isn't 100% successful all of the time. So sometimes people will continue and become more involved in the justice system. So what we're really focusing on tonight is in the sequential intercept model, what we call Intercept 3. So people are now have been incarcerated in a local jail, are court involved. So what do we here in Thurston County have to serve people in that situation? So you will hear about jail programs, you'll hear about some court programs, and you'll find that we actually have a lot of alternatives and programming for people at that stage in the justice system. So, a lot of things. Here's my long list. I'm not going to read this list. You will hear a lot of these, hear the speakers talk about a lot of these different pieces tonight, but just sort of wanted to paint sort of a high level picture that in the jail, there's screening processes for people who are being booked in the jail. There's substance use disorder treatment. There's mental health services. There's a long list of other ancillary services. And again, you'll hear a lot more about those. And then the other piece that we consider to be part of that Intercept 3 is court programming. And so tonight we will hear from some of the therapeutic courts here in Thurston County. So without further ado, I get to pass off the Zoom baton, as I like that way of framing it, to Lieutenant Stephanie Klein. So Lieutenant Klein is with the Thurston County Sheriff's Office Corrections Bureau. Lieutenant Klein has, she told me today, 36 years as a in the corrections world, having worked in a variety of roles, and now obviously holding the rank of lieutenant and overseeing a variety of all of the kind of specialized services for inmates in the Thurston County Jail. And I know from working with her closely that Lieutenant Klein does all kinds of things to make these services happen. She makes sure the contractors have contracts. She makes sure the providers can get into the facility. She makes sure that participants can get to the programs they're supposed to get to. So we are fortunate to have her developing programs, problem solving, and making stuff happen. So Lieutenant Klein, I will turn it over to you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the introduction, Carrie, and thank you for the invitation to present tonight. Like Carrie said, I am currently the Inmate Services Lieutenant, so I am responsible for all of the inmate programming, whether it's a contracted program, a volunteer program, or a court-ordered program. I'm also responsible for the oversight of the contracted providers who are facilitating the programs and the services within the jail. When we shut down in March 2020, The only program that we were able to facilitate, and it was quite a chore, was the Chemical Dependency Program. In the beginning of 2021, actually at the end of 2020, I got some CARES funding and was able to put programming monitors into all of the dorms in the jail. So we were able to reinstate programming virtually, and that's how we are currently doing our programming through the jail right now, is virtually, with the exception of mental health and chemical dependency, who are doing it in person. So Carrie, if you want to go ahead to the next slide.
I'm trying. Let's see.
No
Uh-oh.
worries.
Bear with me. It was working fine a minute ago.
So like
Okay.
Carrie said, we have behavioral health screening. We have screening at the time of intake and booking for both substance use disorder and mental health. We also make referrals at the time of intake for mental health professionals to follow up regarding mental health concerns that they've noticed during that intake booking process. Our deputies are actually able to refer for mental health if they see things during their housing and incarceration, whether it be in our mental health maximum security unit or in the dorm housing. The mental health professionals follow up and can make referrals to our psych provider, our contracted psych provider, for assessments for medication. We do a substance use disorder screening at the time of intake also, current medication assisted treatment, asking about if they're on current medication assisted treatment, or the possibility of withdrawal and or overdose. We make referrals to medical for evaluation and for follow-up for clinical opiate withdrawal scale, using the clinical opiate withdrawal scale to assist with withdrawal management, and then referrals from deputies to medical for observed withdrawal symptoms. Go ahead, Carrie.
I don't know why I'm having trouble with this now. Again, bear with me. Okay.
Okay, so we have the Chemical Dependency Program. It's actually been in-house since July of 1995. It's a program that is evidence-based, based on moral reconation therapy, MRT for short. It's a 3-phase program consisting of 10 weeks in phase 1 and phase 2. In phase 1, they attend treatment groups 3 days a week. They work in the jail, either in the kitchen or in the laundry. And they attend they attend sober support groups 2 days a week, plus hold 1 sober support group with just the CDP participants 1 day a week. And phase 2 is also 10 weeks. They attend treatment groups 2 days a week. In January, we had to shut down our work release program. It has actually been shut down since March of 2020 due to recommendations from public health. So our phase 2 participants are now staying in the main jail during that 10-week process. They do attend groups in the evening with their counselor. Our hope is to work with public health in order to reestablish the work release program so that we can begin sending individuals back out into the community to get jobs for that transition back into the community when they're done with the Chemical Dependency Program. Phase 3 of the Chemical Dependency Program is a 6-week program. They do it either from the community or while on our electronic home monitoring program. They attend treatment groups 1 day a week. They do sober support 3 days a week while maintaining their employment. Our current contracted treatment provider is Olympic Health and Recovery Services. They took over the contract in January of 2022. Our CDP program also partners with the drug court program. I work closely with Sabrina looking at participants, and then CDP drug court clients participate in phase 1 and phase 2. And then at the completion of phase 2, they transition back to drug court and continue treatment. So we can go to the next slide. Thank you, Carrie. So in the Thurston County Jail, we have mental health services. I'm not going to delve deep into this because this is what Joe and Lara are going to speak on, but we do have crisis care and stabilization. We have 4 mental health professionals that provide coverage to the jail for 7 days a week. They respond to those who are in crisis. They do safety planning for those who are on close observation, along with following up with those who have been recently cleared from close observation. These 4 mental health professionals will also be doing true blood screening and referring for true blood services to the prosecutor and defense. We have 1 certified peer support that provides lived experience to incarcerated individuals 5 days a week. She has a client list that she meets with. We have mental health therapy. So we have 1 mental health professional who will assess, develop a treatment plan, and conduct individual therapy sessions with the incarcerated individuals. And then we have a mental health professional supervisor that oversees both the CDP counselors and the MHPs within the jail. We have a contracted psych provider that is on site 2 days a week. 1 day is dedicated for follow-up appointments, and the 2nd day is dedicated for new referrals. Treatment sales tax actually funded an additional 8 hours of provider time in an effort to decrease wait time. So the average number of follow-ups seen per week is approximately 12 individuals. The average number of new referrals seen per week is about 9. That varies. Sometimes she can be seeing 17 for follow-ups and up to 12 or 13 for new referrals. But our current average wait time for referrals is 7 days. So from the time they are referred to the time that they are seen by the provider for a first time visit is approximately 7 days, which most of you know is unheard of in the community. Go ahead and do the next slide, Carrie. We also have MAT program, medicated assisted treatment programs within the jail. So we have 4 that we do. We have MAT. So if the person that comes into custody is on a community already established on a community MAT program, we will continue that program, whether it be methadone, Suboxone, or Vivitrol. Now, we do not do the Vivitrol injection here because it's just too expensive. So our provider puts them on the naltrexone pill, oral. We will start MAT while incarcerated. Our contracted provider prescribes naltrexone. The reason she prescribes the oral naltrexone is because if the person has holds in other agencies or is going to Department of Corrections, we can't transport controlled substances on our cooperative chain. So naltrexone is not considered a controlled substance. So we are able to transport that with the individual to other jurisdictions and agencies. And if the individual is going to DOC, DOC does not allow for Suboxone. So that's another reason why we're doing the naltrexone. Our contracted provider is waivered and can induct an individual onto Suboxone who requests to be placed on Suboxone, but this is usually done 5 to 7 days prior to their overall release date into the community. And then that allows them to connect with whether it be Ideal Options, their primary physician, or any of the other treatment providers in the community. We do an induction of MAT for incarcerated pregnant females who come in and are opioid addicted so that they don't go through withdrawals. And then on our intake medical screening, we actually partnered with Katie Strozik to have screening questions that specifically address MAT treatment so that we were catching those that may not have disclosed to us that they are on MAT. We also provide opioid use disorder education We partner with Capital Recovery Center's Ole Butte Clinic Justice Outreach Coordinator and the specialist to provide education regarding opioid use disorder, MAT, and overdose prevention. Prior to the shutdown, we were doing those clinics twice a week or twice a month. Due to reduced population, we are only doing it once a month, and we are doing it virtually. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So other programs that we have within the jail, some are TST funded, some aren't. We have a domestic violence offender program. This is a court-ordered program that can be done while in custody and upon release into the community. We partner with Family Education and Support Services to provide parenting classes to both men and women in the jail. Thank you, Shelley Willis. Living skills and reentry classes are facilitated by the TST-funded pretrial and reentry specialist. We have an Authentic Manhood, the 33 series, which is a faith-based program. It consists of 6 volumes of education, and each of the volumes contains 6 sessions. It's well received by the population. We do AA and NA groups weekly. We have Preparing for Reentry Employment through Pack Mountain. That is also TST funded, and all CDP participants participate in that. We also have Turning Point, which is a women's class that kind of builds self-esteem, explains how they can set boundaries, and just general education to the women about how to be successful when they're in the community. I must say that all program providers are very anxious to return to in-person instruction. As soon as we can do that safely, do that we're a congregate care, that's our hope too. We think we would have better connection if it were in person. So some of the things that are going well are all the mental health positions have been filled, which they've not been filled. As you know, employment is, it's hard to get employees. Programming is being provided to our population virtually, which is good because it gives them education, it gives them connection to providers in the community, and it also gives them things to do to keep themselves occupied. Referrals to the Chemicaldependency Program are slowly increasing. We have great partnerships with OHRS, BEST, Drug Court, and many other agencies, Northwest Resources. The TST funding psychiatric medication for those court ordered into the 1077 restoration process. Mid 2021, we asked for about $6,000 to provide psych medication at no cost to those individuals who were court ordered into that 1077 restoration process. One of the reasons we chose to just do the court ordered in the 1077 restoration process is because those individuals really didn't have a choice. They were court ordered. It pays for their medication when they come back from restoration to keep them competent to proceed with their court matters. Currently, we've probably had 29 individuals that we've covered the cost of their medication since we started the process in 2021. Some of the things that aren't going well is the wait times for the 1077 restoration process. They're typically around 60 to 90 days from the date court ordered to go to Western State Hospital. We currently have 68 inmates who are awaiting restoration, with 2 of them having been ordered on 1/24 of 2022. And we currently have 10 individuals that are at Western State or Maple Lane in the restoration process at this time.
And for those who don't know, the 1077 process, so meaning someone has been found not competent to stand trial, meaning that their mental health is such that they can't understand the court proceedings going on. And so the restoration process is the provision of treatment and medication to restore their competency so they can proceed with their court matters. Hope I got that right.
You did. Thank you, Carrie.
Go ahead.
So the Blake ruling was not so impactful for us because we were currently on booking restrictions, and it actually only resulted in one physical release from the jail, and that was an individual who had been terminated from drug court and was sentenced to prison. His charges were dismissed and he was released. We are currently seeing a significant increase in the high violence crimes, crimes against children, robberies, domestic violence charges, increase in DUI and vehicular assaults. Some of the things we do for preparing for reentry, we do referrals for housing through Northwest Resources and Fresh Start, referrals to Pure of Olympia, the CTAP, which is good through June 30, and it's run through Pack Mountain. Providence St. Peter's comes in, as does Northwest Resources, and will do evaluations for treatment, whether it be inpatient or whatever the treatment provider recommends. We refer to Capital Recovery Center and other community resources for support of individuals releasing from TCCF. And I think that's my last slide.
Okay, thank you, Lieutenant Klein.
Thank you for
As
listening.
I said, there is a lot going on in the jail. So I did not mention at the start, as a housekeeping matter, we are going to do questions and answers through the chat. We think we'll have a good amount of time to do that at the end. So I think we're going to do all our presentations and then do the Q&A process. So you can type those in as we go, but we'll sort of take them all in one big step at the end. So thank you again, Lieutenant Klein. I'm going to turn it over to Joe Avalos and Lara Toney of Olympic Health and Recovery Services. So Steph provided sort of a bird's eye view of lots and lots of programming in the jail, and the OHRS team can tell us a little more from the kind of clinical side as the service provider for many of those services that you heard about what's going on in the jail. So Joe and Lara, the Zoom baton goes to you.
Thank you. And is our screen displaying okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So good afternoon or evening, everyone. My name is Joe Avalos. I'm the administrator for Olympic Health and Recovery Services, and I've got Lara Toney as well with me. She is our jail diversion program manager. And first, real quickly, although I recognize a lot of you on the chat here, for those that don't know, OHRS, we are a licensed behavioral health agency primarily serving Thurston and Mason counties. We're unique in that we were founded at the direction of the Thurston-Mason Behavioral Health Organization Governing Board. So we are a quasi-governmental entity led by two Thurston County commissioners, as Commissioner Menser and Commissioner Edwards, and one Mason County Commissioner, Commissioner Schutte, and he is our board chair this year. And so our goal when we were established was really to focus on providing a safety net of behavioral health resources and connecting folks to the right supports. So we don't do traditional behavioral health treatment in an outpatient setting or an inpatient setting. We have a good network of providers that do that. We focus on connecting people to those services. And we do that by looking at three specific areas. And I'll just touch briefly on the three areas, and then we'll go into the Intercept 3 services we provide. First is the crisis services. And so with that, it's a 24/7 hotline. We manage that. We have the mobile crisis teams, which also have the designated crisis responders. And so these are the mental health professionals that can involuntarily detain someone due to a mental health or substance use disorder or a grave disability. We also have co-responder programs with Olympia Police Department and Lacey Police Department. And through Thurston County Treatment Sales Tax, will be starting a new co-responder program with the Thurston County Sheriff's Department this year, hopefully in the next month or so. We've got the jail diversion programs, which we're going to talk about. And then finally, the hospital diversion services. And so this is where we help individuals that are from the Thurston and Mason County region discharge from Western State Hospital on the civil side and connect to resources in the community using peers. These are individuals with lived experience with behavioral health or substance use disorders, and usually through our HARPS services, which is housing and recovery assistance using peers. So now we'll move to the jail diversion programs, and I'll kick it over to you, Laura.
Yeah, hi, I'm Lara, Toney, Diversion Program Manager for the jails in Thurston and Mason counties. Thanks for having us here to present on our programs tonight. And so we'll start out talking about our True Blood Jail Diversion Program that started in 2018. And this is a population of individuals that are in custody throughout the state, and we primarily focus on Thurston and Mason County jails for individuals who have in the past or currently are found incompetent to stand trial and are going through the competency restoration process. And so how this looks at Thurston County Corrections Facility is that individuals are booked into jail, and we may or may not know that they're a True Blood class member, but it becomes quickly apparent either by staff familiarity with the participant, that could be jail, other programs within the jail, or the OHRS staff. We also maintain a list of class members that we get from the state that helps us identify who may be a class member and should be screened. But these individuals don't just get screened at Intercept 2 at booking or pre-trial. So they can be followed throughout their stay in custody. So entering into Intercept 3 and also passing through to Intercept 4, depending on the circumstances. So what this would look like is an individual may get booked in, and then some of the other programs may interface with them and refer them to the True Blood program, or we will initiate that service independently just based on our experience with them. Also, inmates can kite and request a screening for True Blood, diversion, and reentry. And an MHP on our team will go down and screen them. And so our MHPs are based in the jail 7 days a week and try to see True Blood class members the sooner the better. And one of the MHPs is actually our supervisor at the jail, who is also the forensic liaison with Western State Hospital. And so they do a lot of work advocating to get individuals moved through that competency restoration process, if that is determined by the court what is necessary for them to stand trial. And then on the outside, we have 3 peer counselors that cover both counties as well, that do the reentry services either at Intercept 2 or Intercept 4. And so they're highly involved and familiar with some of the inmates that get booked into custody. They may have already been a class member or already in the program. And so they do go into the jail as needed to meet the individuals, whether they have met them before or not, if they're going to be accepted into the program. So the care coordination, I mean, really, a lot of the programs are interacting with these individuals, and it can go both ways. So our crisis mental health professionals may need to see the individual if they're too acute and are either a danger to themselves or others, screen in for mental health in general, or are exhibiting acute symptoms. And so the whole team may get involved at some point with our class members. And also the peer counselor that is stationed in the jail provides that ongoing peer support, because these individuals do end up staying in custody for extended periods of time, like Lieutenant Klein mentioned. Once they're assessed and determine what course of action needs to be taken, they may end up being referred to the med provider. So the MHPs, the 4 MHPs that we mentioned earlier, that cover True Blood and the crisis intervention, can refer to the med provider, and it's actually part of a requirement that they do get screened by an MHP to go see the med provider, just to make sure it's an appropriate referral. Also, we coordinate with the CDP program. So our MHP therapist, when we've been fully staffed, has been assigned to provide mental health screening for folks before they enter the CDP program, or if issues arise during their time in the CDP program, if mental health symptoms become apparent as well. And so as you can see, our individuals are kind of wrapped up with all these services, and it also includes outside providers coming in to provide specialized services as well. So this True Blood program is funded through the end of next year, and there's plans in place to continue to support the program beyond that with alternate funding as well.
Thanks, Laura. And I'll add that last year we submitted a grant application to the Seattle Foundation and were awarded a contract to purchase two single-family homes in Thurston County for long-term housing for True Blood class members in the behavioral health population, as housing is always an issue, and certainly for our population. And then at the recommendation of the TST Advisory Board, we were awarded additional funding to add a third home in Thurston County. So we'll be looking to, if we can find the houses, that is Thurston County, we'll be looking to purchase those directly and provide that ongoing case management and rental assistance at those houses. And we also got one for Mason, but just so we'll be busy.
Yeah, and so just a little bit more about more of the Intercept 3 programming. So all of the staff that listed here and that we've mentioned can interact with individuals when they're serving their sentence or in the therapeutic courts, depending on if they're in custody or out of custody, may depend on which program they're in. The peer support is available, and inmates can self-refer, deputies can refer, other programs can refer to our peer specialist. And so she goes in and provides sharing her lived experience and support to the individuals at a peer level versus a clinical level or an authoritarian type level. So it's been very helpful addition to the jail, and reaches some folks that may not otherwise want to be seen by a clinician or something like that. And then the MHP therapist provides primarily an Intercept 3 brief solution-focused therapy for folks who are experiencing mental health symptoms. And so they do a culturally competent-based adults needs and strengths assessment in order to determine their eligibility for services, kind of like meeting medical necessity for behavioral health services, and then create an individualized service plan and work on treatment goals with the individual for a brief amount of time, usually 8 sessions. It can be shorter or longer depending on the needs of the individual. And then the crisis mental health professionals are busy and are just there for whatever crisis or escalation or red flags that may be happening with individuals throughout their stay while they're in custody, serving a sentence. And then also at the beginning in Intercept 2 and Intercept 4, just any time, a lot of this blends together into Intercept 3. So those services are provided throughout their stay. We also provide services in Olympia City Jail and then Mason County Jail and juvenile detention as well. So just wanted to mention that we do cover both counties at the jail facilities.
Thanks, Laura.
All right, and then the jail chemical dependency program, Lieutenant Klein went over that, and she's very familiar with that program. We are getting in there this year and taking over that contract. So it's new for us, but we have 2.5 FTEs, SUDPs that cover that program, and primarily providing services via video conference until recently, where in-person group sessions are getting back on track. And then that includes our phase 3 individuals that are out in the community. So sooner than later, we are going to be doing in-person groups for them as well at our office out in Lacey. And there's a lot of coordination that goes on with that program as well. And I think Lieutenant Klein covered it pretty well. In my experience in the past, our main role before we took over that contract is that we were providing the mental health support, like I discussed earlier, and then also our peer support has interacted with individuals that are in that chemical dependency program as well. So just getting it going.
Thanks, Laura. And as I'm looking at my last slide, I'm realizing that I missed a slide. So it somehow didn't make it into this version. So we'll do it live, as they say. So what's working well, Laura? What's working well with the team in the jail? Besides that, we're finally
yeah, I mean, I really just appreciate the layout of the facility. In my mind, it feels like a brand new facility still, even though it's been there for quite some time. And we have 7-day-a-week coverage of mental health staff, and so with some flexible hours. And so it's been great having multiple team members there, able to respond to the needs. There's not a big wait list for people to be seen. And then just the addition of the peer support has been a good way to engage folks in the program. And it's really an interdisciplinary team. So we're just one part of the programs that are in custody there, and everybody works together and care coordinates. And Lieutenant Klein is just wonderful and helps make sure that the inmates get what they need and have access to all these resources as appropriate. So that's what I would see as the strength.
Thank you. I think I would also add the connection to the outside resources, and whether they are other OHRS services. As you know, when somebody's in crisis or in the jail, it's not a linear process. So they will bounce out of the emergency department or back into the community or reconnect with the crisis system. And so being able to have all of the gap filling programs, or majority of them, with OHRS has been extremely helpful, I think, in having that continuity of care. And in addition to that, the partners that we have through the ASO side and through OHRS just partnerships is really helpful, because we can utilize services like CCS's Catholic Community Services Arrest and Jail Alternative Program and make referrals to them as needed. With Olympia Crew Team, there's just a lot of partnerships going on in Thurston County right now. I think more so than I've ever seen in the last almost 20 years that I've been doing this kind of work in the field here. And the last slide up here, as we go to challenges, workforce is an issue. Lieutenant Klein mentioned and Laura mentioned that we are fully staffed now, which is fantastic, but it did take a while to get there. COVID plays a factor. Provider choice is a factor. As I mentioned, the programs that we do are not typical outpatient programs. So we do cover weekends, and we are working in the jail and in the communities, and we're serving hard to serve populations. But so far, the slide I've got up here, we have been pretty consistent with at least the representation in Thurston County, and we're always reaching out to schools and getting the word out as much as we can to recruit as diverse a population as we can. So, and I think the final challenge I'll say is, while it has been fantastic to have the support of TST and the ASO, there's still a need for more funding for the crisis system, for Western State diversion, and for other alternatives to inpatient treatment. We have a ton of inpatient involuntary beds in our region, but we have 0 crisis stabilization beds, and that's a huge need, and that would serve this population as well as the crisis population. So, and I think I'll stop there. Thank you. Contact information.
All right, thank you so much, Joe and Laura. I just want to acknowledge more chats popping up, but we will, like I said, take those at the end. We've heard a lot about services in the jail from a couple different perspectives, and now to shift gears a little bit, we're going to hear from people involved in our therapeutic courts, kind of an alternative to incarceration. So we have both our DUI drug court program manager, Sabrina Craig, and our mental health veterans court program manager, Keith Meyer. Let's see, what can I tell you about Sabrina? Sabrina's been working in behavioral health, primarily substance use, for 26 plus years, largely in direct service, and then kind of at the county level for about 10 years, first in Grays Harbor County, and then here at Thurston County Drug Court for about maybe 6 years, I think. And Sabrina's worked a lot with both adolescents and adults in the criminal justice system. Keith just came to Thurston County last May after years in private practice, specializing in trauma therapy, serving veterans, family members, etc. So kind of a newer addition to our county team, but we've been really happy to have him. So we're going to get to hear a little bit about the therapeutic court model and then about those specific therapeutic court programs. Oh, I have to go back to sharing my screen. And let's see. So I will pass it off to, oh no, to Sabrina. Did that not go to where I wanted it? Oh, there we go. Oops. Sabrina, go ahead.
Unmute. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us this evening. I'm excited to be able to share a little bit with you guys. So I'm the DUI drug court program manager for Superior Court. And I agreed that I would kind of give you a little background on therapeutic courts too. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the therapeutic courts, and you know, they've been around for the better part of 30 years, actually, I think a little bit over 30 years, and kind of were a result of the losing of the war on drugs. Therapeutic courts kind of came around with as a result of, I believe Miami-Dade County was having a significant issue, and what they realized was that there was an ever-revolving door of people in and out of their criminal justice system for drug crimes or, you know, felony offenses, but all relative to substance use, and that it was costing them a lot of money, and they were seeing the same people over and over and over again, and they were not being able to rehabilitate, or even for that matter, in many situations, habilitate. And so that was the dawn of the therapeutic court. And basically what the therapeutic courts do is they provide structure, supervision, and intensive evidence-based treatment services to the drug offender population. Well, and now not just the drug offender population, but to multiple populations in the criminal justice system, because they have become so successful. But the premise of the therapeutic court or the treatment court is that there is a single judge that oversees the cases, the specific case type in any given court. For us, that's the DUI drug court folks in Thurston County. And that through that supervision with one single judicial officer, that there's always consistent accountability, that we're using the same treatment strategies, you know, for that population because of the ones that work, and that in doing so, we're providing assistance on a regular basis for them to receive those recovery services and to get the other resources necessary for them to develop some kind of, you know, recovery support system in the community. Like I said before, you know, when they started the treatment courts in the early, I believe it was the early 90s, and Joe, I think here, do you remember what year they started drug court here? Providence did drug court here. Anyway, it was
1998.
Yeah, no, I was going to say 1998. I had been at Providence for just a couple of years when we started. And so there's been lots and lots of research on drug courts over the years. And that, you know, really what they found was that, you know, they save the community a ton of money, and that their outcomes are significantly better than regular community-based treatment. It's one of the reasons that they've grown and now have become inclusive of mental health courts, veterans court, tribal wellness courts, because the model works so well. And it keeps people out of jail and in the community or return to the community quickly, and are working towards recovery in their homes instead of in jail or prisons. I think that I kind of touched on the fact that, you know, it helps people recover from mental health, addiction. It helps reduce recidivism significantly, better than any other intervention relative to mental health and substance abuse in the criminal justice system. And that it significantly, like I said, reduces the burden and the cost on the community. So in Thurston County, our DUI drug court, and Carrie, you can give me the next slide if you want. We operate using the best practice standards established by the National Association of Drug Court Professionals. And we focus here in Thurston County on high risk, high need, nonviolent felony offenders and repeat DUI offenders. So our DUI offenders aren't people who are getting their first DUI or many times even their second or third DUIs. These are people who have had multiple DUIs, have burned up their deferred prosecution, which means that they have already completed a 2-year extensive program and then have reoffended after that point. With regard to our drug court folks, these are folks who are not our first time offenders. These are folks that have usually a significant felony history. And when I speak about high risk and high need, what that means is they are at high risk to recidivate because their needs are such that they're not usually going to be met unless they are addressed directly and swiftly before they recidivate. And so that's the beauty of drug court, is it's very intense and it's immediate. And we're able to get in and address specific issues really quickly with folks as soon as they enter the program. We use kind of a carrot stick approach. That means that we're incentivizing change. In other words, we're not shoving them forward, we're giving them an incentive to continue to work forward. And Stephanie talked a little bit about partnering with drug court. Some of our folks who really struggle out in the community initially get to start the program in CDP. These are people who typically would be looking at significant prison sentences if they were to be adjudicated on their crimes. And so instead of going to these long prison sentences, many times they're able to start in the CDP program, and then we are able to kind of titrate them back out into the community, getting them those intensive treatment services before they reenter, and then building on those reentry pieces so that they can come back out into the community and be successful. And for a lot of folks, we're talking about the first time that they've ever lived on their own in the community. So people who are unhoused, coming out of jail into the community, you know, with hopes of being clean and sober, but never having done that before, or coming out of, you know, families with generations of substance use and criminal justice involvement, and just really having no clue or no idea where to access any resources. And so it's really great that we're able to partner with Stephanie's group in the jail and kind of work with individuals to come out of custody kind of in a titrated basis and continue treatment services and do like a warm handoff as they come out into community services and drug court. And finally, I think that one of the best pieces of our drug court program is that we were able to help folks with recovery support services in the community. So things like parenting, domestic violence treatment, medication-assisted treatment, trauma treatment, EMDR. We've contracted with several therapists who provide EMDR therapy. And so we're able to get folks the kind of services that they need so that they can build long-term and sustainable recoveries. Go ahead, Carrie. And so I'm not going to read all of these for you guys, but these are the services that we provide with regard to treatment, recovery supports, and education and vocational services here in Thurston County. And I'll just kind of close by giving you this piece that, you know, whenever somebody comes into the DUI drug court program, you know, they can be assured that they will receive the treatment services at the level of care that they are assessed to need, that we will do everything we can to ensure that they are housed and that they have the resources to be able to care for themselves in the community, whether that be medical benefits, food, housing, clothing, childcare, transportation, all of those things. We connect them with you know, one of the beauties of drug court is that our drug court participants become each other's peers and our alumni become their peers. And so by virtue of it being a big program like that, our peer support is built in. And that every person as they return to the community has at least a high school diploma or a GED and has been employed for at least 6 months full-time before they leave, which means that they are a self-supporting member of our community as they complete drug court. And I'm really proud of that and really excited when we are able to graduate our participants. And by the way, we have a graduation coming up May 4th. And so I would love if any of you want to attend, that you certainly could. Thanks.
Thanks, Sabrina. Okay, last but not least, we have Keith to tell us a bit about Mental Health Veterans Court.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me. I thought, you know, I realized when I was doing the PowerPoint, I thought I'm going to go last. So I thought I'd show some mercy and just do really simple ones and really straightforward ones. I'm again, Keith Meyer. I'm the program manager for Mental Health Court and Veterans Court for Thurston County. Mental Health Court's been in existence, I believe, since 2005, and then Veterans Court since 2008. In essence, what we do is offer an alternative with people that have both, it could have both chemical dependency as well as mental health issues as an alternative to deal with their legal issues. Instead of having that revolving door where somebody has mental health issues, go to jail, possibly decompensate over that period of time, then go back out to the community, reoffend. We thought this therapeutic court in its essence is to meet those mental health issues and needs and address them in such a way that they can successfully go through the program and then enter back in society in a productive way and not keep coming back because their mental health issues are connected to their legal issues. So in essence, how does somebody qualify for the program, their eligibility? Basically, we have a nexus, a connection between people's mental health issues as well as their legal issues. And if there's a connection between the two, they're eligible for mental health court, assuming that the legal system sees it the same way as we do. So one of the things that happened that we used to do, this used to be a really long process. How does somebody get in? You know, once they're eligible, how they get in. Unfortunately, just because of a set of circumstances, we used to take about 2 to 6 months to get somebody in. So one of the first things that we changed was get more efficient at what we do. So from a clinical point of view, we can have somebody enter the mental health program within about 10 to 14 days. We've got that shift around so that people aren't hanging there with and not receiving services. The other thing that we shifted to is taking higher risk, higher needs. So when we look at it, it's a little different than drug court. We're really emphasizing the mental health piece. So when we say higher risk, we're asking human beings that have struggled to stabilize in their life at any adult point in their adult life. And so when we look at that, we're looking at people that have struggled to have homes, be successful in treatment, have a connection to the community, things of that nature. So we are now taking human beings that have these issues and needs as well. So when we look at what we want to do is provide early intervention. So when I mentioned earlier, we used to take 2 to 6 months. That was the entire legal process. So not to sound too complicated with the legal part of entry into our mental health court. When somebody qualifies and the team has accepted them, we're going to immediately provide services to them through our care coordinators. I see that both of them are on there, Melissa and Bianca. They're the heart and soul of our program. What that means is somebody may not legally enter the program for another 6 weeks. It could be 8 weeks, 10 weeks, depending on how the legal system kind of works those things out, because it can be pretty complicated cases. So during that period of time, where they're working out legal stuff, we're going to go ahead and provide services. And we're going to do what we call wraparound services. When we do an assessment of a human being, there's all kinds of needs that need to be addressed, from mental health to substance abuse to housing. And we're going to find services that addresses those needs and wrap them around the human being so that as they enter the program and develop and grow into the program and succeed in the program, that we are addressing every one of their needs along the way. I think Sabrina did a great job of explaining that can range from parenting classes to jobs to all kinds of things. So we're trying to provide those wraparound services at the beginning of treatment as soon as we possibly can, which results in us having a real team approach to things. We have to build these partnerships. I see that Amanda Chick from Northwest Resources on, and she's been kind of our angel with finding for housing and things of that nature. So as we build partnerships, whether it's Northwest Resources or peer support, different providers within the community, then what we're doing is we're giving ourselves the best chance to help human beings as they enter the program and become successful. And again, we're looking at working with human beings that have struggled to be stable in their adult lives in general. So just giving you the sense of how to get into the program, what we try to do as soon as we can, and then try to lead to a pathway of success. Mind doing the next one. So here's the questions that were asked of the panelists. What's going well? I think we've done a really great job of understanding what wraparound services mean. When I first came to the job, we struggled with connecting with resources and understanding what that meant. We are really, really efficient at it. We can find sometimes housing if the things work well. We had one situation where we found housing within 15 minutes when somebody lost their house. That's not common, but we're just really good of where we need to connect, who we need to call, how do we get things going to meet the needs of our participants. What hasn't gone well is it's not anyone's fault. It's like everyone else. We're dying for resources, right? Everyone in the world, we all need housing. And in Western Washington, we all know how difficult that is. We also, as a mental health program, we're struggling to have mental health services that are available in our community. It's not anyone's doing anything wrong. It's the need is so high and we don't have the resource right now, and hoping that changes in the future. The impact of COVID had a huge impact. When I first came aboard, we were at a historic low as of June 15th of 2021 of 27. We ended up graduating 18 of those 27 over the next 9 months. So it had a huge impact on us. However, the truth is with COVID, it made us really reevaluate what we're doing and what we need to do better. And so we made a number of internal changes that I think will make the program more successful in the future. Our number right now is at 42, and our capacity for both mental health court and veterans court is around 55. Racial disparities. Of course, we always want to be aware of cultural issues around race, ethnicity, and things of that nature. What I need to do is have somebody who can come and tell us what we need to hear, not versus what we want to hear. So that's why we partner up with AOC, and that's the administrative offices of the courts that come and do research with us ongoing. Tell us what's working, tell us what's not working. For example, since we shifted to high needs, high risk for the first time in our program's history, of the last 25 participants that came into our program, 13 were of another race than white. So what we need is researchers to tell us, okay, is that anomaly? Is it just that we've seen an increase of race and ethnicity in both Superior Court or District Court, or are we doing something that's successful? So we're really looking forward to working with AOC to partner up to tell us what's working. When we get a ton of education on understanding the impact of race on the criminal justice system, we want measurable things that we can see what's working and what's not working. And we need to get information as we can, as closely in real time, so that these people that have expertise in research can tell us that information. So that's what we're doing moving forward. Preparation for reentry, we're a different program. So we're already in the, people that we're working with are already in the community. And so when I look at reentry is what happens when people succeed in the program, they graduate. So what we have is around an 88% graduation rate. And we see recidivism rate, depending on the court, between 3 and 5% with our program in the last year. So I think that's everything. Like I said, I thought since I was going at the end, I'd kind of be really straightforward and just make it just as simple and straightforward as possible. I love talking about these programs. So on the last one, please, anytime you want, call me, email me. I'd love to help out in any situation, or just be able to talk about the program and understanding it better. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having me here.
All right, thanks to Keith and thanks to all of our speakers. That was a lot. And thanks to all of you for your time. So I'm going to shift over to our very active chat right now. As I said, we would have time for questions at the end, so we will just jump in. So I think I'll start kind of at the top. So this is probably for Lieutenant Klein, who mentioned a bit about how medication-assisted treatment happens in the jail. So Lieutenant Klein, can you explain kind of the process? You've mentioned induction, Suboxone inductions, I think 5 to 7 days before release or something like that. And the question is, why wait until individuals are being released into the community? You're muted.
Times likes that mute button. So when we began talking about initiating a MAP program in the jail, we do, like I say, if the person is already on an established community MAP program, we will continue that MAP program, whether it be methadone, Suboxone, Vivitrol, but we do it oral form because the Vivitrol shot is so expensive. So we do continue that if they come into custody. Our provider, it is a contracted provider. Our position, administrative position, Chief Toma, Captain Downing, their position is we don't tell our providers how to provide their treatment. So our provider chose to use naltrexone for various reasons. One, if that person ends up going to another jurisdiction, that medication can be transported with them. If it's a controlled substance like Suboxone, it cannot go on a cooperative transport system, nor can it be sent to the person going to prison can't take it either, because DOC does not accept Suboxone treatment in their facility. So that's the reason why we chose the naltrexone. For those that we know are releasing in the community, we will start them on, the provider will induct them onto Suboxone because they are releasing to the community. That was just the way we did it. It was a treatment or contracted providers choice of action for doing Suboxone and MAT treatment in the jail.
Okay, thanks. Steph, while you have the floor, can you explain a little bit? You talked about how you got some when with COVID, you were able to get virtual programming in the classrooms and the dorms. Can you talk about, so how many computers, how many people can participate in programs at once, et cetera?
Okay, so we did get some CARES funding for programming monitors and computers. Each of the 4 dorms has a programming monitor and computer, along with the classroom in the options building for work release. We do, like for parenting and for AANA, all 3 male dorms participate together. Each dorm classroom can have up to 7 participants. This is to allow for social distancing, kind of under the guidance of public health. But I know our parenting class has almost 15 participants that are between the dorms. AA and NA run about 20 to 25 people per session. And our women's programming is separate from the men's program, so we aren't commingling the males and the females, which is the way we did it prior to COVID anyway. And actually by doing it via the monitors, and Shelley can attest to this, you can have more participation, because when they were doing it in the mixed classroom in the main jail, the main classroom, they could only have 12 participants total per provider. So there are actually having more participants, especially on the men's side. The ladies, our population is only like 17 or 18 people in our general population female dorm. So that participation, although low, is still pretty indicative of how many participated prior to COVID.
Great, thanks. Okay, so there's a question about reentry and reintegration programs. I want to just also use this time to put in a plug for the, as Steve mentioned at the beginning, there will be a 3rd forum on April 26th, and the focus of that is kind of that release, reentry, et cetera. So we'll talk about that more then. But Steph, maybe you could say a little bit about that, and then Joe and Laura, from your perspective, if you guys could also chime in a bit on kind of transition planning for as people transition back to the community. So Steph, do you want to talk a little more about reentry? And I know you covered some.
So our reentry, our pretrial reentry specialist works with individuals, getting them SUD assessments, setting them up with housing interviews, calling around, getting services that can be set up. They do provide them some hygiene and other items that they put in their property for them when they release. So a lot of times, Leon with PrEP, we can refer to Pack Mountain, and he refers them to different services within Pack Mountain that can help reduce barriers for like ID, for insurance, and work with them that way. We do refer to LEAD, and most recently we'll be referring to the is it CTAP, Carrie? Is that?
Yes. I don't know what that one stands for, actually.
I don't know you either. So that's what we do for integration back into the jail. We also, one of the things is with capital recovery, the youth clinic will come pick them up and take them to the clinic to get them enrolled with Suboxone and get that program started. They also have several other services that they're providing like food assistance. They have several things that, let me pull up their flyer real quick and I can tell you. I just recently had a meeting with Crystal Pierce, who is the outreach specialist, and she had updated me on a lot of the services that they were providing that I wasn't aware of. So that have recently been started with Capital Recovery. So just give me a quick second and I will pull up that flyer.
While Steph does that, Laura or Joe, do you guys want to chime in on planning for discharge?
Yeah, so for our True Blood program, individuals that are accepted into that program for release, we do a release plan with the courts and the participant that so it plans for housing and follow-up treatment services and getting them integrated back into the community. So there is a release planning process. And again, the peer counselors come and meet with them before they're released so that when they do get released, they're already familiar. And the best part of the program is for True Blood, we have flexible scheduling. And so we always have our peer counselors pick them up at the jail release doors, usually in the evening, sometimes not, but we do provide that service for True Blood. And then a lot of times we do coordinate with the Healthcare Delivery Systems Reentry Program. And so we can refer directly to that reentry program for any of the inmates we've interacted with that need some kind of release planning and assistance getting back into the community. And then as often as possible, we have a warm handoff with the external providers. So when individuals are booked in the jail, they're provided all these services within the jail, and a lot of times their normal external providers aren't coming in and continuing treatment with them, but we do keep in touch with them so that when they are released, they have the information they need, they have the appointment they need, and can get right back into the services they're familiar with. So that's kind of how we handle reentry at Thurston Jail.
Great. And Keith, did you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to say, as a program manager, how much we need our community resources. A program like True Blood has really made the difference between somebody having a chance to stabilize in life or being homeless. And these programs are just, I just wanted to say, have been just so instrumental in the success of the program. And so I'm just really thankful they exist. I just wanted to specifically mention True Blood because we've had 2 people recently. It's made a difference of them having a placement and a place to go, whether they were coming from jail or inpatient care. And these, I just cannot emphasize enough. There's a lot to talk about stats, but the difference that they make in human beings' lives is really, really important. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Great. And while you've both mentioned True Blood, I see a question later in the chat about the name of the True Blood program. So Laura or Marilyn? Marilyn, go ahead. I haven't heard from you yet.
Hi, sure. There is some interesting confusion. I'm Marilyn Roberts. I'm with NAMI Thurston-Mason. I apologize for coming into the meeting late. I was just directing a response back to the person that asked. Actually, Cassie Trueblood was an attorney for Snohomish County. So this is her real name. She actually sued Washington State on behalf, she sued court in Snohomish County, which ended up turning into a state lawsuit that eventually the federal courts took over. And so it's referred to as True Blood based on that first attorney who sued on behalf of an individual with a serious mental illness that was incarcerated. It ended up being a class action lawsuit against DSHS that had 89 clients. And so the actual name of the lawsuit is AB versus DSHS, if you want some really light reading.
Thanks. And we've sort of, I think, programs have continued with that name because there is this ongoing settlement agreement and funding that has come out of that as the state has sort of failed to comply with the timelines that were set forth in that the state was fined, money piled up, and that is what has funded some of this programming, including the programming locally here in Thurston County. Okay, so thank you. I see a question. homes for mentally ill, like staffed homes, how many are there in Thurston County and how does one get referred in? I'm not sure I understand exactly the question. I would say, I think it requires little explanation that housing in general is maybe the #1 challenge in our community, and housing for the population of individuals with challenging mental health needs might be the most difficult challenge. Maybe Joe might want to chime in a little bit on HARPs. Does anyone, and if there's anyone else who wants to talk about kind of housing this population in particular, that might be helpful.
Sure, I can talk about it a little bit, and I see Amanda's on here too, so I'm sure she knows the struggle coming from Northwest Resources to find housing. As you mentioned, there are some recovery-based housings. There are Oxford houses, and there are some other local landlords who are recovery friendly, although there's not really a regulatory body to really define what a recovery housing or sober living looks like. So it can look very different. There was some legislation that passed, I think it was last session, that would require all sober and recovery houses to, abide by I'm going to get the acronym wrong. It's WAQRR. I think it's the Washington Quality Recovery Housing. It's WACR is how people say it. It's a set of guidelines that's intended to kind of show some guidance to these homes on how to establish a recovery house. But that's definitely our biggest challenge for sure. And if this is in regard to the homes that we're looking to purchase as a result of the Seattle Foundation, those will mirror a program that we currently have. This is a partnership with Homes First. So they provide property management over a single family home, where we have individuals who are in the community that are part of the NGRI population, so not guilty by reason of insanity. And so they are stable. This is not an adult family home. Folks have to be stable to live in this home, and they do receive case management in that case through Western State case managers for that population, and then as needed through our peers through OHRS and case managers. So they do have to be stabilized before they can move into those homes.
Thanks. Okay, and Joe, while you have the floor, talk about hospital diversion, please.
Oh gosh, that could be a whole other presentation. Real quickly, I'll address it from both ends. So first, with the crisis system, certainly when we get calls in the community, the mobile crisis teams respond, or the law enforcement co-responders, or Olympia Crew, or AJA. We have a variety of community resources that respond to those folks. And we try and divert from hospitalization from the front end. Even when a DCR is called, we typically only end up detaining about 30% of the individuals that are referred for detention. We always try least restrictive, or try and divert from taking somebody's civil rights to and involuntary detain them. So we have that piece, and then we have the other side is folks getting out of hospitals, and that's our hospital diversion team. So we work with Telecare, South Sound Behavioral Hospital, St. Pete's, and Western State for individuals that are discharging from all of those voluntarily or involuntary from those resources. And we connect them with peer bridgers, with the HARPS team to try and find housing, and then of course to community resources, connect them to Medicaid, get them enrolled with a provider, get them on medications, and do a warm handoff to a provider in the community is always the goal. So I hope I answered that.
Thanks. In 2 minutes or less. That was great. Thanks. There's a couple that were chatted just to me that I think are good questions. So for Keith and Sabrina, could you guys talk about when people have co-occurring needs? And in the past, there's been challenges, do they fit in drug court? Do they fit in mental health court? How well do we serve individuals with co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders? So I would love to hear from both of you.
So when I go see somebody for a suit, so Keith's program is located in district court and my program is located in Superior Court. And one of the really fortunate things about our two courts and our prosecuting attorney's office is that they have been pretty collaborative with us about making sure that if we think that someone might better be suited in another program, that frequently they will take that recommendation. And so when I have ended up having referrals where people have been acutely mentally ill and likely would struggle to be able to participate in drug court, but may do really well in Keith's program, a lot of times I can go back and ask a prosecutor if they would consider mental health court referral. And then that gives me the opportunity to be able to coordinate with Keith and perhaps move somebody that can't be served in my program to his program, and where they could get the kind of services that they need. Now, that isn't to say that if I have someone come into our program, I'd say probably 85 to 90% of the people that come into DUI drug court have a co-occurring mental health disorder. And we coordinate outpatient treatment services now with our current substance use disorder provider. So they provide both substance use disorder treatment and mental health treatment. That's relatively new, but historically we've coordinated that those outpatient mental health services with community providers. Joe mentioned before, there are a number of community mental health providers. And so we've just coordinated those services historically, but we do have an option if we want to keep them in programming relative to their criminal justice referral, that we have the ability to move them back and forth, well, not maybe back and forth, but across the program so that they're treated in a way that it's best suited for them. Keith, you want to add to that?
Sure. Thank you, Sabrina. I appreciate it. So as a clinician, I really appreciate the question because it is a challenge. So Sabrina's right, there's a lot of overlap between our programs, and what's really neat about our programs, if somebody went to drug court, I know they're going to get their mental health issues addressed. And so if somebody is interchangeable like that is really good. If I thought for some reason it was more of a chemical dependency issue, then definitely would either go DUI court or drug court. So as a clinician, one of the hard things is the symptoms, for lack of a better word, for mental health and drugs and alcohol, they can mimic each other, and it's hard to separate. And so what you try to do for mental health court is look, is it more self-medication that led to more of an addiction process over a period of time, or was it addiction process that led to maybe some mental health issue? And that's always tricky to figure out. Sorry, it's getting a little late tonight. But what I really appreciate about Sabrina is how much we communicate to try to figure that out, because we're both in the business of helping people. And so if I thought for any reason it would be better for drug court, I would ask, we're a little different. So anyone in our program, anyone in the community, as well as any attorney, can ask for what's called a screening, where I'll go out and do an assessment. So it's a little different of that. I would just pass on the information to the attorneys involved in the case to say, please consider this. I think it would be a better fit. I hope that answered your question. I just thought it was a really good question.
Great, thanks. I see one in the chat that, again, this just went to me, so you may not all see it. Is there any program that addresses skills needed for getting a job? So again, to plug the next forum, April 26th, we will have a representative from Pack Mountain Workforce Development Council on that call. Great question to ask on April 26th. And then Sabrina, did you want to say something? You're like nodding,
well,
unmuted.
I was going to say that, we work closely with Pack Mountain, much like many of our other community partners, to help all of our folks get employed. So Pack Mountain is a huge asset with regard to skills, resumes, interviewing, all of those things. And so we work with them really closely to make sure that, you know, our folks get resources for employment reentry as well.
Great, thanks. And there is a TST funded position that I think Lieutenant Klein mentioned a little bit. The preparing for reentry employment that serves individuals in the chemical dependency program in the jail. So that population does get some kind of extra support. 8:31, I think we were wanting to wrap up by about 8:30. I want to thank everybody for their time, both the panelists, and then I recognize so many of your names. And I know everybody on this Zoom is working in some capacity on behalf of this population, advocating for family members, doing direct service, providing housing, providing parenting classes. Clap, clap, clap. Thanks for the last chat in the chat thread there. Was really great to see. So I guess one quick question to all the presenters. Steve wanted me to ask, can we share your slides? Everybody okay with that? Thumbs up. Yes. Laura and Joe. Yeah. Okay. So slides will be posted on wherever Steve tells us they'll be posted along with the recording. And we've, I think, posted the link again for the last forum. Thank you all so much. Steve and Marilyn, anything else you want to add to wrap us up?
Thank you for excellent presentations and questions. We really appreciate everybody being here.
Okay. Yes, again, thank you all so much. Good discussion, and have a good rest of your evening, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you, Joe and Mike, for all the tech work.
Yeah.
And Joe, great to see you again. Just awesome. I appreciate what you're doing. So I wish you much success.
Thanks, Keith, you as well.
Thanks.